Whatever you're into when it comes to sports, you can find it right here. Now, play my intro. Now it's time for the Robb Johnson Sports Show, presented by Robb Johnson Media and the Legacy Maker Sports Network. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Robb Johnson Sports Show, episode 88. I know I had 87. I apologize. I got so many episodes, I don't even know what episode I'm on. But yeah, we're episode 88 here on the Robb Johnson Sports Show. And really quick, before we get to the other stories, we do have some... Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have some breaking news out of the NFL. Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, former offensive coordinator, is now the head coach of the Chicago Bears. He goes in division to go against his Detroit Lions. We'll see what kind of effect this has on the Detroit Lions. We saw this same thing last year. Opposite side of the ball when you had Dan Quinn go to the Washington Commanders. As you see now, they're in the NFC Championship game. The difference is that Dan Quinn had been to a Super Bowl. Dan Quinn had actually led a team in the Atlanta Falcons. The question we're going to have is, what kind of head coach is Ben Johnson? And if you look at Dan Quinn and you look at what Dan Quinn did in Washington, I mean, in Seattle, as a defensive coordinator, helped take him to the Super Bowl. That team was not quite the same when Dan Quinn left. Everywhere Dan Quinn has been, he's had success as a coordinator or as a head coach. We will definitely see what Ben Johnson is going to be all about, because he's going to Chicago. It's going to be his task it's going to be Ben Johnson's task to make sure that Caleb Williams is on the right track to greatness. There's no other reason why Ben Johnson's going to Chicago. It's not for the defense. It's not for it's not to put up regular season wins. The Chicago Bears brass, and I believe that Caleb Williams has the possibility of winning the championship in Chicago. So that's why Ben Johnson's going there. Ben Johnson reached his ceiling with Jared Goff. There's nothing else he can do with Jared Goff. This was the Lions' time. The Lions' time to win a championship was this past year. And, of course, they failed. We'll get into that in a minute. But this was their time, and that time has passed. Just like last year when Dan Quinn's defense gave up over 40 points to the Green Bay Packers, this year the Lions gave up over 40 points, even though he's not the defensive coordinator or whatnot. The Lions did not look great. People have said they're disappointed. I give a lot of credit to Washington. I think this is a good hire. I think Ben Johnson to Chicago is a decent hire. But again, in my opinion, when I'm looking at this hire, it has to be about – I think what Ben Johnson has to do, I think many people are thinking it's going to be about Caleb. And I don't think that's the case. I think that Ben Johnson is going to have to establish a strong running game in Chicago. And what is the one way, ladies and gentlemen, that the Chicago Bears are going to be able to establish a strong running game? Yes, you talk about free agency. Yes, you talk about maybe drafting some players. But what are the Bears? Number 10, number 11, I believe, in draft status. You got to go get Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty is built for Chicago. He runs hard. He will be the type of player that will help Chicago get to the that will get to the next level. Ben Johnson reached his peak in Detroit. Everything that Detroit was going to do, they had a chance to do it. And that's it. Aaron Glenn will probably be the next domino to fall. He'll probably go to the New York Jets, which I was hoping he would go somewhere else. I was hoping that Aaron Glenn could get an opportunity at another great spot here in the NFL. But Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson deserve to go to where they're going to. So that's just the bottom line on that, folks. Let's talk about tonight's game. Let's talk about the national championship. For me, folks, when I look at Ohio State and I look at Notre Dame, I look at two teams this year that were in peril a little bit. Any other year, these two teams are not playing for the national championship. You look at, first of all, Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois early. Any other year, they're not getting to the national championship. You look at Ohio State. Ohio State lost to Oregon. Not a bad loss. Not a bad loss whatsoever, especially for where they were in the regular season. But then you look at the Michigan game. And I understand a rivalry is a rivalry, folks. But you really got to understand that losing to Michigan, put it to you guys like this. I know some Ohio State fans, I listen to radio, I listen to television. Even if Ohio State wins the national championship tonight, it won't matter because they didn't beat Michigan. Ryan Day can't beat Michigan. And you have to ask yourself, if you're Ryan Day, do you want to really put yourself through this issue again? Do you really want to put yourself through this conundrum once again? If you win the national championship tonight, do you really want to put yourself through this? Do you want to come back to Ohio State, have to go to Michigan? You know Michigan's going to be better next year. Anybody like me who knows college football, you know Michigan's going to be better next year. So you have to ask yourself, what is going to happen? What is going to happen tonight after this game? Because I got Ohio State. I'm not going to sit here and say Notre Dame doesn't have an opportunity. Never going to say that. But we also have to really be honest with ourselves and say this Ohio State team has the opportunity to turn things on. This Ohio State team has the ability to do things that Notre Dame just can't stop. Now, mind you, Notre Dame has some really good corners. They got some really good corners, and they got Riley Leonard, quarterback, who is an absolute man. He will take it. He will process it, and he will make sure he does not quit on his team. But if Ohio State, especially their defense, if their defense gets going, and you can create some turnovers if you're Ohio State. Not only that, it's not even really about the pass game. It's about having rhythm in your passing game. It's about running the football if you're Ohio State. You got those really two good running backs, especially Trayvon Henderson, out of the local area here, Hopewell, Virginia. And he gets going. It's going to be really, really hard for Notre Dame. Also, I can't remember the last time a team played a good Texas team, and people were like, oh, my God, they played Texas. They didn't look that impressive. Folks, Texas was just in the Final Four last year. Texas has a damn good defense, a damn good team. Mind you, everybody's vaunted SEC. They came out of the vaunted SEC and lost to Georgia twice. That's when they had Carson back. That's when they had Carson back. A very underrated quarterback, by the way, who will be going to the Miami Hurricanes. I'll be talking about that more this offseason. But let's look at the history, folks. Let's look at the history of Ohio State against Notre Dame. Let's look at some of the games from 1995 to 2023. 95-96, that was a Saturday game. Ohio State won 45-26. In South Bend in 96-97, Ohio State won 29-16. In 2005, I believe this was the Fiesta Bowl, where Ohio State won 34-20. January 1st, 2015-16 season, Ohio State won 44-28. Then in 2022-23, In Columbus, Ohio State won 17-10. And then last year at Notre Dame, Ohio State won 17-14. I say all that to say this, folks. It's not going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Ohio State is going to do good. I think Ohio State's going to play good football, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But you have to caution Ohio State. Folks, this is not a team that is undefeated. This is not the greatest team in college football history. They lost some games, especially the questionable game to Michigan. So they're beatable. Ohio State is definitely beatable. That's the bottom line. We can sit here and say that they have one of the best freshman wide receivers we've ever seen in college football, and they got the running backs, and they got the quarterback, and they got the defense. The defense with me was really impressive with Ohio State, especially when you go back and you look at that game that they had against Oregon. That was what was really impressive for me. But when you look at this game and you look at these teams overall, Ohio State is just a better team right now. There's no knock against Notre Dame, but Ohio State is just a better team. But we've seen in the past, you go back to the Miami Ohio State game, you go back to the Boise State Oklahoma game, sometimes all that team needs is a little bit of momentum. And I think the biggest factor for Notre Dame is Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman, if he can get his team into that certain mindset, and he's played Ohio State, so he know, even though it's different players, we get that, we understand that. He's played at Ohio State. He understands the mentality. He understands the crowd. He understands the emotions. He knows what certain buttons to push if he's a head coach, when him being the head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So he'll be able to pull those punches. I just don't think it'll be enough. I've got Ohio State win this game tonight by a score of 35-24. Really good. It'll be a good game, but Ohio State will pull away late. I got Travion Henderson having over 100 yards rushing. Now, let's get to the NFL playoffs. Let's talk about the games on Saturday. Kansas City against the Houston Texans. Texans win. No, they lose 23-14. We'll go down the stats a bit. C.J. Stroud, 19-28, 245, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Imagine if he had his full just package of weapons. Imagine if C.J. Stroud would have had his weapons. If he would have had Diggs, and he would have had his other guys in the lineup. He just doesn't have them because of injury. You know, you have Nico Collins, you have Michi, but you don't have the guys, you don't have your other weapons that you had earlier in the season. Now, you still had Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had 18 carries for 88 yards. And think about that, folks. Joe Mixon, who used to play with the Cincinnati Bengals, 18 carries for 88 yards. You would have hoped he would have got more carries. For the Bengals, for the Texans that won this game, honestly, Joe Mixon would have to carry that ball 30 to 35 times. Hell, he probably had to get to 40. Because running the ball against Kansas City is what you're going to have to do. And that's what something I'm going to preview later this week when I talk about Buffalo. Buffalo can't get cute. Stop getting cute. Run the football. Run the rock. That's what we're learning out here, folks. Run the rock. We'll get to that in a second when we talk about the Detroit Lions. Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, 16-25, 177, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Kareem Hunt, 44 yards on the ground. Pacheco, 18 yards. Travis Kelce, playoff Kelce, 117 yards. They continue to do things, and they continue to frustrate teams. People want to talk about the calls and all this. No, Kansas City made the right plays at the right time. Stop crying about certain calls when, and I'm a big D'Amico Ryan fan. You're asking your kicker to go out there, Fairbear, go out there, kick a 55-yard field goal. You're giving the ball right back to Kansas City. You don't kick the ball in that situation. You know what you do? You believe in your defense. You punt that ball, you try to get it deep. That's why you practice these things. That's why people say special team doesn't matter. No, special teams really do matter. You kick that ball down to the 1 yard line. You get it stopped there, one inside the 5. Try to create a turnover. Maybe they kick the ball back to you. You have favorable field position. If you're the Houston Texans, you just didn't get it done. It's okay. You're still a young team. If all the people criticizing C.J. Stroud, I get it. I understand people talking about C.J. Stroud took a step back and he's lost it. He's 23 years old, folks. C.J. Stroud is 23 years old and has 2 playoff wins. That's more than your favorite quarterback, Justin Herbert. That's as many as Dak Prescott, and it's more than some other first-round picks. So get off C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud is 23 years old. He won't be 24 until October 3rd of 2025. He's got 2 playoff wins already. He's doing pretty good, especially for a guy that lost all his weapons throughout the season. You know, people saying the man struggled big time. Well, last year he had 23-5. This year, 20-12. He lost a lot of his weapons. It was a little bit of a down year, but guess what? The Texans were in the playoffs. A lot of your favorite quarterbacks, a lot of your favorite teams weren't in the playoffs. The Houston Texans were. And you can talk about the division all you want to, but there have been a lot of teams that have benefited from bad divisions. So we won't go there. Now, next game. Let's talk about the Washington Commanders against the Detroit Lions. Boy, I tell you. The Detroit Lions had a chance here, but they got cocky. But you know what? And yes, they had injuries, but they've had injuries all year. I'm not going to blame the Detroit Lions. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say that the Washington Commanders were just a better team on that night. They played more opportunistic. They made the plays when they were supposed to make them. Jaden Daniels, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 22 of 31. That's called being efficient. Jared Goff, 23 of 40, 313 yards, one touchdown, 3 picks. I will blame the Detroit Lions on this point. Do you all realize that on 14 carries, Jamar Gibbs was averaging 7.5 yards per carry? Do you know that even though he's coming off an injury and he may not be completely healthy, that David Montgomery had 7 carries to 28 yards? You know what Ben Johnson was doing on Sunday night, folks? On Saturday night, you know what he was doing? He was auditioning to be a head coach. He was trying to be impressive. And sometimes when you try to be impressive instead of just sticking to the game plan, you lose games. And you already had a Washington team who was really good coming in, a team that was mixed with young guys to veterans. And they felt I felt like they felt disrespected in a way. You're not playing Detroit Lions football. You're trying to play this fancy style, trying to be all, fancy with your plays, trying to do things that are uncharacteristic of you, even though you can do these things sometimes. You lost, and you deserve to lose. I was pulling for Detroit. No, you know what? I wasn't pulling for anything in either one of these teams. Either one of these teams went to the NFC Championship game. I think I'd have been happy with it. But Washington just wanted more. Let me say this as well. Jaden Daniels. And one reason I was hoping they were going to play LA was because I wanted him to go against another first-round pick. Baker Mayfield, first-round pick. Jared Goff, first-round pick. If he had went against Matt Stafford, that'd been another first-round pick he could have potentially beat. Then if you get to the Super Bowl, you play another first-round pick. Think about that. Think about if Jaden Daniels would have played Matthew Stafford this week. And he went to the Super Bowl, and he goes on to the Super Bowl. He would have played and beat 4 first-round quarterbacks. If Jaden Daniels, and I know people may not like this, I don't care. You can say whatever you want to. I remember when Patrick Mahomes won his first Super Bowl, I said he is a living, breathing, active playing Hall of Famer. If Jaden Daniels wins this game next week in Philadelphia against that team that is that talented and then goes on to the Super Bowl and beats a really talented Buffalo Bills team or really, really talented dynasty in the Kansas City Chiefs, Jaden Daniels at 22, 23 years old will already in my eyes be a living, breathing, active Hall of Famer. That's how serious I am about Jaden. Because here's the thing, folks. This roster, this is the worst it's going to be. They got cap space. And they're going to take advantage of it for the next 2 or 3 years because they're going to have to pay Jaden Daniels the highest contract in the history of quarterbacks, especially if he can stay healthy. If Jaden Daniels can stay healthy, he's going to be the highest paid quarterback we've ever seen in the National Football League, and it won't be particularly close. And I'm a fan. And you got to remember, they got rid of Jahan Dotson before the season. De'Ami Brown, who's 25 years old, North Carolina, third-round pick. And if you look at the trajectory, and you look at teams like Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, when he got there, Tyreek Hill, even though he had first-round talent, he was like a 5th, 6th round pick. You look at Travis Kelce, 3rd-round pick out of Cincinnati. You look at what Washington, Terry McLaurin, coming out of college, I knew he was good. I knew he was a great player. He was still a 3rd-round pick, folks. Zach Ertz, 2nd round. Great player. Probably will make a Hall of Fame one day, especially if he continues to play the way he's playing. Jamison Crowder, 4th-round pick. John Bates, 4th-round pick. Okay? So when we talk about the dynamics of what Jaden Daniels is doing, understand he's following the formula of the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what he's doing. Because when Patrick Mahomes came in, he wasn't working with the greatest weapons as far as 1st-round talent. But folks, that's the thing. It's not always about 1st-round talent. It's about being able to scout well. And mind you, some of these players come from the Dan Snyder era. We sit up here, we blame Dan Snyder and blah blah blah. Look, the Commanders have had some really good teams in the past. They just couldn't get it done. This is the first real quarterback that they've had as far as a potential Hall of Famer since Joe Theismann. Yeah, Mark Ripken was real good. He was a real good quarterback. You had Doug Williams for a couple of years. Robert Griffin III was the closest thing to having that before the injury and them not being able to handle it. That's not Daniel Snyder's fault that Coach Shanahan and his son could not handle Robert Griffin III the correct way. Robert Griffin III would probably still be not still with the Commanders, but he would have probably just been finishing out a 10-year career. It's about who you bring in. It's about who you bring around your franchise quarterback. The Washington Commanders have a franchise quarterback, and can't nobody do anything about it. The new rivalry in the NFC East is the Eagles and the Rams. That's the hottest rivalry. Dallas doesn't matter. The Giants don't matter. Folks, if we're really getting what we think we're getting for the next 5 years or so, it's Commanders, it's Eagles. They are what matters. The Commanders have cap space. The Commanders have their franchise quarterback. Now, Sunday. Everybody's lovable love story. The Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford, 26 of 44, 324, 2 touchdowns. More than likely, he will not be back with the Rams next year. Where can Matthew Stafford end up? I'm thinking of a team in Vegas. I'm thinking a team, if they can get some weapons, if they can draft well, but I don't know. Where would Matthew Stafford go? I don't know. He had the game of his life yesterday. Kyron Williams had 19 carries for 106 yards. Puka Nacua, 6 catches, 97 yards. Cooper Kupp, 8 catches, 61 yards. This team played good enough to win. But guess what they ran up against? 26 carries for 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7.9 yards per carry, a long of 78. Saquon Barkley. And I'm here to tell you today, I know you cannot vote on the MVP now, but if you all really look at who is the most valuable player in the National Football League this year, we're not talking about past, we're not talking about this or that. This year, the most valuable player in the National Football League is Saquon Barkley. That's point blank. That's it. Yesterday, Jalen Hurts was sacked 7 times. Let me say this about Jalen Hurts. Some of you Eagles fans out there, some of you delusional Eagles fans talking about, oh, Jalen Hurts, he's average, blah, blah, blah. Listen, where would the Eagles be without Jalen Hurts? You tell me that. Look at the Eagles without Jalen Hurts over the years. Where would they be without Jalen Hurts? He opens up that running game for Saquon Barkley. He does certain things. In fact, yesterday, towards the end of the half, and what's the end of the half? Yeah, towards the end of the half, A.J. Brown dropped the football. That wasn't on Jalen Hurts. He dropped the football. A.J. Brown dropped the football. He had 7 targets, 2 carries. Devontae Smith had 4 balls thrown to him. He caught all 4. The defense again played opportunistic when they needed to. They didn't do anything too fancy. They just played their game. So congratulations to the Eagles. The Rams were close, but best be sure Sunday's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a war in Philadelphia between the Commanders and Eagles. Bills and Ravens. All I'm going to say about this game is this. Baltimore, you can't turn the football over. Lamar, you can't turn the football over. You played great enough. You played good enough to win the game. You just didn't. Those slandering Mark Andrews today. Do you realize where the Ravens would have been in the last few years without a guy like Mark Andrews? Do you realize where they would have been? Talking about a guy this past year who had 69 catches. I'm sorry, you had 55 catches for 11 touchdowns. This guy's had over 10 touchdowns twice in his career as a tight end. Mark Andrews won't be 30 years old until September the 6th of 2025. They did not have Zay Flowers. The Bills were missing a whole lot of people, though, so I can't really give them that excuse. James Cook, 17 carries, 67 yards. That's going to be the key on Sunday. And another thing that a lot of people aren't talking about, or I think people kind of miss it a little bit, is this. Isn't it funny when Von Miller starts playing football again, how a team looks different? And that's another thing that I think that folks are kind of missing. This is Von Miller's time. This man's got 2 Super Bowls. 2. Uno, dos. This is the time of year where Von Miller, if he's in this position, steps up. I think he had a suspension during the middle of the season. Bills kind of struggled a little bit, but ever since he's been back, the Bills have looked like a different football team. The Bills have looked like a football team that you have to reckon with. Again, I'll get my previews at the end of the week, but if you are the Buffalo Bills, you're going to have to bring everything to Kansas City on Sunday. You're going to have to make sure that there are no missteps, because Patrick Mahomes has not played his best ball yet. And I got a feeling that he's about to turn it on. That running game is about to turn it on. These Kansas City Chiefs did not have to play particularly hard against the Houston Texans. They knew they were better than the Houston Texans. They did not have to pull out their full repertoire against the Houston Texans. They won a game 23-14 where, they really didn't have to try that hard because they're better than Houston. Houston, even though Houston tried to play their best game and give their best effort, Kansas City's just on a different level than they are. So if you're Buffalo, you have to ask yourself this simple question. What does Kansas City bring to the table when they know they're playing the best? They already beat them once. Remind you, Baltimore beat Buffalo worse than Buffalo beat Kansas City. So it's one of those vice versa things. It's one of those hit you with your own medicine type of things. Karma, if you want to call it that. Because now they got to go to Kansas City, the AFC Championship game. Josh Allen has a chance to be immortal. He has a chance to go in and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And then if Josh Allen goes home, and I say home because home is for the Buffalo Bills. Home is the house of horrors. A home that has been filled with the house of horrors, the Super Bowl. If Josh Allen can get to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl, just like Jaden Daniels, he is a living, breathing, active Hall of Fame player. And you cannot deny that. And it's deeper than football because this is what the Buffalo Bills are. This is what they've been waiting for. But mind you, they have played 4 teams. 4 teams in the Super Bowl era. During the Super Bowl era, they played 4 teams in the NFC East. Dallas twice, Washington, Giants lost to them all. What happens if they play Philadelphia? Could that be 0-5? We'll see. There's a lot of storylines coming out this weekend. In fact, I'll get to some more storylines when it comes to the Eagles and the Commanders. Very strange stat, especially when it comes to dates. But I'll give that to you guys later on in the week. So, let's get to our next segment. Last two segments, by the way.
I need you to shut the hell up for the immediate future.
I need the people out there who are on, quote unquote, major radio or major TV. Please stop downplaying the field of journalism and media, please. Like, I hear people saying, "Oh, we're just covering this stupid game. It's just a game." Huh? Listen, folks. For folks like me who are still trying to make it to the big time, for people like me who are still trying to make it to where I'm trying to do this on an everyday level at an income where it can just be out of this world, stop devaluing sports. Like, even if you don't watch certain games, you don't say that on radio and TV. You have to sell it to the folks. I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, the curtain being pulled from up under you, but our job is to sell sports so people will continue to love sports. People have always loved sports. I came up in a day where journalists, media people, they love sports. Even if they didn't watch the game, they didn't tell you. They got the stats. They told you what happened, blah, blah, blah. People these days, man, I just don't think they care anymore. I think they look at the game of sports and say, "Oh, it's just a game, and it means absolutely nothing." Yes, it does. It means a lot. Because if people stop watching sports, people stop giving a care about sports, and people stop putting their dollars into sports, that affects you, which then trickles down and affects us. So please stop making sure you value sports more. Value sports. Stop talking down on it. Stop making it seem like it's just nothing. That's what happened to Max Kellerman. Max Kellerman at one time was just like, "Oh, it's just a job, just a stupid." And I think some people at ESPN down looked at him like, "What the hell are you doing?" I think even Stephen A, because a guy like Stephen A, even though I can, joke on him and have jokes sometimes, I have respect for Stephen A because he understands, especially a brother from New York, how hard it was to get into this business. For some people, it's not that hard to get into this business. But for some of us, we still have to grind and work harder than the next person to get into this business. So please stop devaluing it by saying stupid things out of your mouth when it comes to, "Oh, this doesn't matter. It's just a game." No, it's not just a game. For some of us, it's our ticket. So, next topic. Hi, everybody. Final segment. Tell the world how you feel. 2025 so far has got off to a little bit of a rocky start. You look at the wildfires. You look at the stuff that's continuing with North Carolina. Shout out to people in North Carolina. Hope everything gets better for you. Praying for you, and all the other things that are going on. You look at the election that happened today, etc. My tell the world how I feel is that, folks, let things play out. Let things play out. Let things play out. Don't rush to judgments. Let things be what they are. Let people do their processes. Was I the biggest Joe Biden fan? No, but I respect him as the president of the United States. Am I the biggest Donald Trump fan? No, but I respect the office of the United States of America. Give these people a chance. Let things work themselves out. We have a lot of things in this country that need to be fixed. So let things play out. I tell everyone, and I hope everybody will continue to just, pray. Try to have a level mind. Don't be so angry at everything, because too many times we are angry at everything instead of just sitting back, listening, and hearing different perspective. Hearing a different perspective will change your life, because then you're able to compartmentalize and be able to have a conversation without getting so upset and angry. A lot of times people get upset and angry and they just don't want to hear anything. That's because they're stuck in their ways. And when you're stuck in your ways, you don't grow. If you don't water a flower, it won't grow. So my message today, and tell the world how you feel, folks. Let's continue to try to grow, not only as individuals, but as people overall. And let's make 2025 a great year and beyond. I will be back with you guys hopefully on Well, I'm only doing Monday shows now with the Rob Johnson Sports Show, but I'm hoping to come back to you guys either Friday or Saturday. I'll let you know via Facebook when you can find me. I'm doing, like I said, one show a week, two at the most. Two is the minimum, the maximum. That's gonna be maximum 2 shows. Rob Johnson Sports Show every Monday around this time. If I don't have a game to cover, etc., I'll try. I maybe even try to do it early in the day, but it will be all. It will always be past 5 p.m. when I do the Rob Johnson Sports Show from now on Mondays. Me and Larry have a big show coming for you guys here very soon. We'll be discussing after the Super Bowl. We'll discuss the Super Bowl as it comes close. We have a new show coming up called the Sunny Night. Uh, I can't remember the name. Sunday Night Hype. I was going to say Sunday Night Heat, but that's WWE. Sunday Night Hype with Rob and Larry, or Larry and Rob, however we figure out to put it. And that'll be coming soon, hopefully the week before the Super Bowl, so we can have a big discussion on that. Other than that, folks, enjoy the national championship game tonight. Enjoy the rest of the NFL playoffs. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the hockey. Enjoy the fact that we're getting closer and closer to baseball season. For the Rob Johnson Sports Show, I'm Rob Johnson. I will see you all later.
It's caught in the crossfire.